Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Manga Mike here, and happy holiday season to everybody. Hope y'all have a happy new year and everything like that for whatever you celebrate as well. Hope you have happy holidays. So we are going to be talking about creating awesome villains for Shonen manga here in today's video. So I hope that you enjoy it. I'm going to do a different format. I'm going to have some gesture drawing on the side, and I'm going to have me in the corner, so you have a couple of things to look at if you're getting a little bored with just my voice. So let's get started. Alright, everybody, so let's get into it. So the first thing that you want with your villains is you want to give them a history and a background. So what event or events occurred to them in order to turn them into a villainous person or being. So this is important because just like your protagonist has a call to action in which, they have to make a choice whether or not they're going to do something about what's going on or they're going to not do something, and they always do something, right? The same thing is true of your villain. You want them to have something happen in which they have to make a choice. Am I going to try to persevere through this in quote-unquote the correct way, or am I going to find a different way, my own way of dealing with this problem, even if that means taking matters into my own hands? So that's number one. Number two, think of your protagonist's main goal and overall motive, then think about what goes against that goal and that motive. So this might be a little bit of a goofy example, but stick with me. Let's take Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, for example. His overall motive in the show is just to be able to fight extraordinarily strong opponents, and he also has this bloodlust. He will sabotage, backstab, trick, and betray in order to realize this goal. This goes against both of the things for Gon, of course, because Gon has this goal of becoming a hunter and finding his father, and Hisoka's kind of in the way of that throughout the entirety of the hunter exams, right? Because it's like, I have to face Hisoka now, and then I have to also do it right after the hunter exams, or I guess it's still part of the hunter exams when he's learning about the magic system and everything like that. He has to now overcome Hisoka in order to gain this power, or order to test this power, right? And he also has to prove to himself that he is worthy of being a hunter by landing a blow on Hisoka as well. So those things are kind of in the way of one another, but it also kind of, and I'll get to this point next actually, philosophically is in the way of Gon's philosophy on life, right? Gon's a very good friend. He's trusting, he's caring, and those are not part of Hisoka's mindset, except for maybe Hisoka's feelings towards Gon. Alright, so let's move on to number three. So give the antagonist a philosophy or a code that they follow. This is really, really important. People in general live by specific sayings or their sense of self, right? And creating a philosophy for your villain is a great way to make them feel real. So the other thing that's really important is it doesn't necessarily have to be a very complex philosophy as well in order for it to feel right. For instance, Yoshikage Kira from JoJo's Part 4, he just wants to live a peaceful life, but what's kind of combating that is his murderous intent and his just murder in general, right? But it makes his character feel consistent and bound by a form of realism. Just like you want your artwork to be consistent throughout, you also have to have the foundation there for your writing in order for your character to feel like they are real, right? You don't want a character having this motive but straying away from it all the time just because it's not really fully formed. That makes for a pretty bad character, so that's something that you want to think of as well as you're trying to create your antagonist. Number four, think about their plan. So this might feel like it goes with the first one, but not necessarily, or the second point that I made, but it's not necessarily true. There's a difference between having them have a goal and a motive for that goal, and actually having a plan to achieve it. So one example, and it's one of the greatest in anime, I think, history, in my opinion, is Sosuke Aizen. the reason why he's such a good villain is because he's extraordinarily powerful, but he's also been developing a plan in order to take down the Soul King for centuries, right? And the plan even had implications on the protagonist himself. So he was able to also kind of execute this plan almost to perfection. He almost pushes the entirety of Soul Society on the precipice of ruin before both what's-his-face, Clogs, can't think of his name right now for whatever reason, and Ichigo kind of work together in order to kind of defeat him, right? And your plan for your villain doesn't have to necessarily span across several arcs and work as well as Bleach's plan for Sasuke Aizen did, but it can, right? After you write like the main foundation, or after you even outline your story, you're able to now go through and, just like you would do foreshadowing and things for your protagonists like triumphs, you can also kind of lay the groundwork behind the scenes for the antagonist's plan as well. So that's something that you should really think about. Like, so this is the antagonist's goal. So what is his plan in order to kind of reach that goal? And that plan, in most cases, should seem and feel almost better put together than the protagonist's goal, because the antagonist has to be able to kind of create these struggles for your protagonist throughout, right? And that's actually kind of part of the next point, so I'll skip to that now. Tip the balance of power in the direction of the villain. You don't want your protagonist to feel so overpowered that no villain can touch them, because that makes for very bad story writing. Your villains should almost always be more powerful, or if they're not more powerful, they should be smarter than your protagonist. And the final battle shouldn't come down to who's the strongest, but rather who is the most cunning in that moment. So the reason why I say this is because people are kind of weird and sick. And not people in comics, but I just mean people who read things in general. We like to watch protagonists really struggle, fail, and suffer before they persevere through things, right? Because that kind of imitates what happens in life. I mean, you can go back to Ichigo, right? He has this he doesn't really have a goal and stuff like that. His only goal is really to protect his friends, but the reason why he's still such a good character is because he has this consistent internal struggle, and you come to find out a lot of that internal struggle is actually due to Aizen, right? And his plan. So, that's part of it, but also you want to kind of like think about the most OP power that can kind of like exist within your magic system in your story, and instead of giving that to your protagonist, you want to maybe give that to your antagonist instead. And that way your protagonist has to be able to persevere through their wit rather than just getting a random power up that doesn't make any sense, and that feels a little bit more earned by the audience, or for the audience I should say. Number 6, make your antagonist at least semi-relatable. So there's humanity in all of us. We have specific things we all desire and need as human beings, which is true regardless of your deeds. My favorite kind of like juxtaposition for this particular example is actually Frieza versus Crollo Lucifer from Hunter x Hunter. So while Frieza is probably one of the most iconic villains in the history of anime and manga, I would say his character overall is really boring. And the reason why I would say that is because he's not very well developed. He doesn't really feel like he's not a person, he's an alien, but he doesn't really feel human in any way. The only person that's like semi-relatable to Frieza is almost like Hitler, for instance, because of the intent to wipe out entire races of people in order to get your way, right? In order to prove that you're the strongest or what have you. And those kinds of people aren't relatable to us. So Crollo, in kind of juxtaposition to that is almost father-like. Him and the Phantom Troop enjoy chaos, which all villains kind of enjoy chaos to some extent, but they also aim to take care of themselves and care for one another. And this leads me to like one of my personal favorite story arcs in anime of all time, which is the York New City arc. And my favorite moment of that arc is when Uvo is killed, and then the Phantom Troop, they grieve, and then they create chaos in his memory while vowing to like extract revenge, right? And this makes Crollo and the whole entire Phantom Troop feel more relatable, and they feel more like human beings who are capable of all emotions rather than just being these like mustache twirling villains that you always see, rather than being like a Frieza, right? So anyways, that is my 6 points on this particular topic. This is something that I think a lot of people get wrong. Villains aren't just these obstacles that your protagonist has to jump over. Villains are human beings or people who have had some kind of tragic event occur, and then they also have their own build-up, their own storyline, their own background, and that's what makes stories feel good. That's what makes the philosophical like alignment of your protagonist feel better. It's almost even better when you can sometimes agree with the villain, right? All of those things are super important to think about, and you need to put in a lot of time and effort into the writing of the villains that you have. So, I do hope that this was really helpful for you. I enjoyed making this video. It's one that I always kind of think about. I probably have created a video on this before, but I wanted to like redo that a little bit and get these kinds of like topics down on paper and read them to you. But anyways, just like always, I can't figure out a good way to end, but I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a happy holiday season. And I will be back with another video next Saturday, hopefully, if I can get one out. But until then, I appreciate you. I'm Manga Mike, and I'm out.